Hey guys, so yeah, back here with the 52nd page of Sabrina Online, Stripes and Links. We're continuing the conversation with Sabrina and her mom, and basically, of course, we left off where Endora, Sabrina's mom, basically kind of acknowledged that the kiss she got from Zig Zag. um, she acknowledged that she didn't hate it. You know, it's kind of hard for her to explain, but she's basically saying she didn't hate it. So we continue on from there, and Sabrina is asking her, like, "Mom, what are you saying? Have you changed your default settings?" In other words, what she means by default settings, because Sabrina is such a computer nerd, is basically she's asking her mom, like, what are you saying? Is like, have you gone by and all that? Are you starting to go swing the other way? And then she's wondering if dad knows, and her husband, that being Dora's husband, Sabrina's dad. And Dora's like, no, and she's like, and Dora's like, what? No. And then she's like, I didn't think you'd understand. And then she goes on to explain that, at first she was shocked and scandalized at first, by the kiss, but then she wasn't. And then she was wondering why she wasn't. And basically she said she kept mulling it over in her head, wondering. And we kind of see, the husband in the background, I think, scooting Tabitha away or something like that. So she doesn't hear this because maybe they feel that Tabitha's not ready, to hear about this or learn about this yet. But basically, she is telling Sabrina that she kept mulling it over and over in her head, and excuse me, and she kept telling herself, "I'm no homosexual. This kiss shouldn't be troubling me far more than it is." And then she was asking, like, "What's with me, or what's wrong with me that it isn't?" Because again, she's molding it. She kept what she's telling Sabrina, and she kept molding it over in her head, like, you know, she kept telling herself basically in her head, "I'm no homosexual. This kiss should be troubling me more than what it is." She kept molding again. What she's telling Sabrina, here trying to explain the situation is, you know, she kept molding it over and over in her head that, she was saying this to herself, quote, "I'm no homosexual. This kiss should be troubling me far more than it is. What's wrong with me that it isn't?" And then Sabrina's like, "There's nothing wrong with you." "Well, not because of this anyway." And then Endora's like, "Well, that's not how," and Endora explains, "Well, that's not the way I was brought up." And I think we can all understand Endora's plight right there. That when we get raised by our parents, we're raised a certain way and everything, to be proper, to be of this belief and that belief and stuff like that. And she goes on to even explain that. She says, "I was taught that boys went with girls without exception, and anything that differed could only be wicked and wrong." So she's basically telling, her exactly what I said, that when you're raised a certain way and you're, raised on certain beliefs and everything, like boy should be girl, man should be with woman, vice versa, without any excuse, without any exception, and that anything, outside of that, like man with man, woman with woman, and so on, would be wicked and wrong. And, she absolutely, and Endora has a point there. That's how a lot of us, whether we admit it or not, were raised. And then she goes on to explain that if she wasn't in complete agreement with it, that belief in, yeah, sorry about that. Like, basically, she's saying that if she wasn't in complete agreement with that, uh, there must be some moral failing on her part. And Sabrina's retaliation is, that's crap, right? And then Endora's like, she's not sure. And then Sabrina drops this on her. She says, Mom, you might have to face an unpleasant truth here. You're slowly becoming more tolerant and progressive." And Endora's like, "Oh, stop. Like, please. That's not," she's basically saying, "No, Sabrina, that's not the case. There's no way I'm, being more tolerant or progressive. But Sabrina obviously can see right through it. Like, yeah, mom, you are becoming more tolerant and progressive. You're basically starting to discover a side of yourself that you didn't even know you had, and everything that you kept hidden, and everything. So I think what's going to happen eventually is, I think as a lot of people have been predicting, and even predicting it in the comments, that what's going to happen is it's going to come out that Endora, is going to discover that she's bi, that despite being raised, a certain way, straight and everything, having these kind of beliefs and all that, that basically she's starting to realize that maybe because things are a little different, from the sexual standpoint, the intimacy standpoint between her and her husband and, Sabrina's dad, that maybe she's now, hanging, because she's been hanging around with, hanging out with Zig Zag a lot on these little ladies' nights out at the clubs or the bars. She's starting to slowly have an attraction towards her. And let's not kid ourselves. Zig Zag has an effect on people in this universe. She has an effect on people where she can turn them. There are exceptions, Sabrina being one of them, but she can. She has an effect on certain people. We have to admit that. So I'm not surprised that Endora is kind of coming out and saying, kind of slowly coming to maybe accept, even though she's denying it as best as she can, that she might be, turning a certain direction, although she still will stay true to, her husband and her marriage and all that. And I think again, we just have to admit that it's an effect that Zig Zag has on her. It's an effect that Zig Zag has on her. She has it on a lot of the people, the staff she works with, except for Sabrina and maybe a few others. But we can see that the effect is now slowly rubbing off on Endora. And I think maybe it's because she hung out with Zig Zag a lot, because she hasn't been getting that intimacy like she did that one time when her husband came back from the tour of Double Z Studios and slowly kind of got a little frisky with her that one night. And I guess things just haven't been the same or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out more. But yeah, basically, it looks like the next, the next major chapter in all this, or the next major, revelation or bombshell here will be that Endora has to, embrace the fact that, she's become bi, or, she's becoming bi slowly, and that she's either got to accept it, or she's got to find a way to kind of remind herself, I'm not that way. I never will be that way. Zig Zag's just a friend, and I'm going to leave it at that. But we'll see what happens. But it's interesting to see that they're going in this direction. And again, this kind of still ties into what I've talked about before, that I would not be surprised if maybe they do a Fur After Dark spin-off comic with her and Endora, that means Zig Zag and Endora getting it on, so Endora probably gets it out of her system, and see whether or not maybe this is, this new, maybe see maybe if this direction is the new path for her, that that she can kind of work around, like, she could still be married, happily to her husband and raise Tabitha, but on occasions, when she's out with Zig Zag, maybe have a little bit more fun than just going out for a few drinks here and there. But we'll see. We'll see. The Fur After Dark spin-off comic night just might be Zig Zag and Tina doing their thing, while they're on the road, staying at hotels. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. But I like this little. I like this direction we're going in. It is kind of predictable. But we'll see how they handle it later on. And I like how Sabrina is basically very calm about the situation, towards the end of this recent page, where she's like, Mom, let's face facts. You may not want to admit it, but truth is, looks like you're becoming very, tolerant and progressive. In other words, she's basically telling her mom, hey, you're definitely, whether you want to admit it or not, you're kind of getting modernized here, and you're becoming to accept certain things that you may have not thought you accept. So it's a good, nice little continuation, nice little moment between them, and it looks like the revelation is slowly becoming a reality for Endora, and we'll see whether or not she fully embraces it, or she tries to, play it off and try to be straight, or try to, try to basically ignore it and stay straight. But we'll see what happens. But let me know what your thoughts are on this recent chapter. or page, I should say, of Sabrina Online Story Stars and Stripes. I think we might get an answer next week when it comes to this, maybe in a few weeks. And I got a feeling everything's going to convene very soon because we still have to go back and check on Zig Zag and Tina and their progress in the story, and see how Zig Zag's family on her side that doesn't, or on her dad's side, who doesn't like her and accept her, is going to react to seeing her, as well as the interaction between her and her mom, and how that's going to play out, and maybe find out, if she can get some answers as to why she acts the way she does, and everything based on what she did with Endora, where believe it, where again she's the one that stopped it, mid kiss when she was doing it, and that's what left Endora shocked and everything. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next. But give me your thoughts overall. What are you looking forward to the most? What are your thoughts on this possibility that's going to get revealed and accepted maybe by Endora, that yeah, she might be going a certain direction while still being married happily and all that? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know down below in the comment section. Love to hear your thoughts and everything. And until then, I will talk to you later. But give me your thoughts. I like this continuation we're getting here. It's really, really neat to see. And yeah, that's about all I can say, guys. And until next time, I will talk to you later. But give me your thoughts if you are following.